Welcome back to the Proving Grounds. I'm your host, Andrew, and today we're going on to the next segment in the Application of Violence series, which is grappling. Now, grappling is a close range form of fighting in which throws, trips, and takedowns are utilized to gain a better position over your opponent. Grappling involves the use of ground control and various holds, locks, and breaks to render your opponent unable to hurt you, or it makes them give up entirely. There's nothing like putting a little bit of pain on your enemy to make them realize that they've just made a critical error and it's time for them to apologize and go home. Once again, I'm an advocate of cross training. I strongly believe that you can enhance your tactical ability by learning from different schools. Sometimes it's just a matter of learning ways of executing a technique that just work better for you. As always, you have to be honest with yourself and your coaches as to what your goals and expectations really are. If you're more sport orientated, just straight grappling orientated, your coach needs to know that. If you want to eventually transition into MMA fights, they need to know that also. Because a lot of schools will have different various programs in conjunction with Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. So if you go to a school and they strictly offer Jiu-Jitsu, and should they look down on other grappling arts or MMA or whatever, that may not be the best fit for you. Or your budget may not allow you to go to 4 different schools, so there may be a fight gym where they have multiple programs that can help you towards that goal, ultimate goal of being an MMA practitioner that will just be more economical for you. So you have to factor these things in and be honest with yourself and honest with your coach what you're really looking for. Your teacher can't teach you. They don't know what you're trying to learn. They can't help guide you on that journey that you're trying to go for. Now, the styles of grappling I'm going to talk about were chosen specifically because I've had some experience with them. Any styles that I don't talk about in this video, it's simply because I haven't trained them and I really don't know that much about them. Which brings us to Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is a martial art designed for smaller, weaker opponent to be able to use superior technique and leverage to take the fight to the ground and use chokeholds or joint locks to defeat your enemy. Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu was founded by the Gracie family and became an international sensation after Royce Gracie's stunning victories in the Ultimate Fighting Championships. It absolutely blew people's minds to watch this skinny little Royce Gracie, in his gi, walk into that ring and take down far larger opponents from all different backgrounds and choke the life out of them. He put people in all different kinds of submissions, and he fought guys from every background, even guys that were supposed to have strong grappling backgrounds in their own right, and basically dismantled everybody. One of the things that really got people was how he used his own clothing to help him effect these chokes. Now, a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu practitioner can often finish the fight off his back, as Royce Gracie so aptly illustrated back in the day. But at the very least, you usually can get out from under someone if you have to. And there's a lot of sweeps from the ground, there's a lot of sweeps from the ground that you can use to gain that top position. And if you have to, get your feet and just get out of there. One of those reasons for that is you don't want to be on the ground for too long in a street fight. You don't know when this guy who just took you down is going to have a couple buddies just waiting to stomp your head into mud. It's a nightmare you just don't want to go through. Next, we have wrestling. It's a martial sport with grappling, martial grappling sport, and it employs takedowns, throws, and joint locks in conjunction with pins to dominate an opponent. Wrestling can trace its roots all the way back to ancient Greece. The modern incarnation of wrestling was meant to be a safer version, so a lot of the old locks and chokes were removed to make it safer. Anyone who's wrestled can tell you it's not particularly safe and it's not easy. The several styles of wrestling, most really most common, just Greco-Roman, freestyle, and collegiate wrestling. They all have their merits and are very powerful. Wrestling tends to be action packed, and the training is designed. Coaches really want you to not only be physically but mentally strong, so they really try to develop that mental toughness. And the best grapplers, no matter what kind of grappling it is, these grapplers tend to have this grit that you just can't grind out of them. One of the huge aspects of wrestling is that they always want to maintain that top dominant position. They're very aggressive. They want to take you down, be on top of you, and dominate you. One of the downsides to that is when a wrestler first gets put on their back, say they transition to Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, they often have a hard time overcoming being on their back because they've been conditioned for so long already to avoid their shoulders being put on the ground. But it also makes them really good because they won't let their shoulders be on the ground. They don't just lay down like a typical guy who doesn't have any grappling experience. You show up, someone puts you on your back, you just lay on the ground. Then you have, they know a lot of things already. They just have to get over some of the conditioning that makes them great at the one sport to get better at the other martial art. Next, we have judo. Judo was a martial sport created in Japan in 1882 by Jigoro Kano, and that was meant to be a physical, mental, and moral fighting system. Judo employs throws and takedowns to bring the fight to the ground, utilizes pins, chokes, and joint locks to finish the fight. Even though judo means the gentle way, it is a brutal sport in which those who don't tap tend to end up with broken bones, torn ligaments, and other injuries, or you get choked out. What makes judo a great grappling art for the street is the ability to throw a larger opponent using his own momentum against him and remain on top while doing so. And because judo puts such a significance on throws, in a match, you'll get stood up if a fight lingers on the ground for so long. So once the fight hits the ground, judoka tend to have lightning fast submissions and chokes. This means that, again, they put you on the ground. They're looking to snap or choke you. And again, they utilize clothing to affect technique, or they can, and which gives you another advantage in a fight. And one of the things I like about judo is that it marries well with Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Next, we have catch wrestling, which is an aggressive hybrid wrestling system that originated in England in various forms of English and Irish collar wrestling. Catch wrestling was once a mainstay of a lot of carnival and fun fairs. They used throws and pins and joint locks to end a fight. One of the cool things about it, they would fight each other, but they would also often challenge locals. And so locals could have a chance to win a little bit of cash and some bragging rights. I don't think it usually went well for them, though. So catch wrestlers would have these lightning fast submissions that people would were called hooks. They're often called hookers because they use what were called hooks, which was often not a really defined move, but it basically was a technique that stretches, spreads, or compresses a joint or limb. So they're really quick, they hit you hard, and usually by the time you realize that you were in a bad position, damage was done. And in the catch wrestling scene at the time, you would have guys from all over the world, traveling and learning. So you'd have guys from Russia and, Japan and, England, obviously, traveling the countryside, and they would wrestle against each other and doing what guys do, oh, hey, here's the technique. I like that. Show me that. And they learned from each other as well. Next, we have combat submission wrestling. This is a reformulated shoot wrestling curriculum developed by Eric Paulson, who was the first Westerner to win the Shuto World Light Heavyweight Division. I believe he did that 3 times. CSW is an aggressive and crafty fighting methodology that I found fits perfectly with my own training. It is a hybrid style. It borrows from Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, catch wrestling, and various other styles. Also has a very strong striking component, which makes it great in an MMA curriculum. And as always, I find it to be just a very intelligently designed program by Mr. Paulson, and it's actually affected my fighting tremendously. Now, that being said, I love grappling. It's very effective in one-on-one encounters. But one of the big things you have to be careful of if you're in the street is being on the ground for too long. Okay, as I said before, you don't want to be on the ground getting your head smashed in. So you need grappling, especially to fight these big guys. Some guy just throws you on the ground, or just, whatever. It's icy, you slip and fall. Guy gets on top of you. You don't want him smashing your head on the ground. But you don't want to be there while his buddies can, show up and help out. So you need to be, whatever it is you're going to do, you got to be quick about it. You can't just be, on the ground with a bunch of dudes kicking and punching you. You just can't do it. You're going to get hurt bad. That's why, again, I advocate for cross-training. I think, even if, let's say, you're just like, I'm a judo guy, that's the only kind of grappling I care to learn, that's fine. But you really need to cross-train in some kind of striking art, so that way, you have more tools in your toolbox to protect yourself. As always, if you like this video, feel free to click like and subscribe. Especially if you don't like the video, leave me comments below. Give me the good, the bad, and the ugly. And remember, the more you guys like the show and support it by sharing and all that good stuff, the more I can do in the future. With that, have a good night.